All right, we're recording. Breanna, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
Yeah, of course.
Um, I wanted to talk to you because honestly, you're one of the most interesting people I know. And I'm not just saying
Oh,
that because you're my future sister-in-law, but seriously, we share a lot of things in common, a lot of common interests. And I think that, you align very well with the types of information and messages that I want to spread with this podcast and this project. So you were one of the first people that came to mind when I was looking for guests. So I really appreciate you taking the time. So how about starting by introducing yourself a little bit and giving a little bit of your background and some of your areas of interest and expertise?
Sure. Thank you for that compliment. You know a lot of interesting people, so if I'm one of the most interesting, that's a huge compliment. Um, yeah, I graduated with a degree in personal fitness training and nutrition in 2015, and I had a health and wellness business when I was 19. Actually, I was pretty young when I started my business, and I worked at it for 2-3 years, very seriously until I kind of got very exhausted and left the industry for a good while. But I gave fitness classes, did personal training, a bit of life and business coaching, which sounds crazy because I was like 19, 20 years old, but I did that. And I did a fitness competition, but then I left the industry and took some time off, worked on myself, and kind of went to a lot of conferences and self-development stuff, kind of chasing a new meaning and a new just I don't know, a new a self concept basically, and started working on that. And I moved to the city not long after I met your brother, and we moved in together. And I pursued my love of writing by going back to school, getting a journalism degree. I graduated just this past June in 2021, and through all of that, I focused on my self development journey still, and reparenting, which is a field that like I've been studying a lot through interviewing professionals that work with like family dynamics and family dysfunction and overcoming that, and then my own personal journey with reparenting. And now I'm looking to work on. I don't know if it's going to be a podcast. It's kind of going to be a media platform. It's still a baby right now. It's still a little like fetus, and there's a lot of ideas and brainstorming going into it. But I kind of want to merge together my background in health and fitness and journalism, and self-development and all of that in one. And when I'm not working on that, I am a first responder. I work for 911, basically, dispatch.
Very cool. Lots of ground to cover. And I didn't know about that project, that health and fitness project. You
Yeah.
are joining me in my fetus project as well. So we're
Okay,
kind of
cool.
both working on little new developing things. But
Yeah.
going back to when you were 19 and started your first business, I'm interested. I don't think I've ever spoken to you about this before, but what got you into that in the first place? Because
Mhm.
it is a very young age to launch a business of your own. So I'm curious to know how that started.
Yeah. It seems like it's so long ago, and it's not that long ago. But I when I graduated high school from my little town in Ontario, I moved to Alberta. I was 18, and I just like 2 weeks. I remember at graduation, actually, at my prom, telling my friends like I'm moving out west, and everyone was like, "What? Like in 2 weeks, I'm moving." I just packed my bags and I went with two other guys that were going there, and I moved out there and I applied in policing at a big college in Alberta, which kind of ties in with what I'm doing today. And then I also applied in personal training. Um, was going through a lot. I wasn't in a very healthy relationship with the person I was in when I lived out there. And the personal training program was a condensed program. So it was shorter, faster, and it was full time in a classroom that was in a gym. So it was very hands on. Like I was in class half the day, in the gym half the day. And I had started going through my own journey of, it wasn't really a weight loss journey. It was just like I worked at a gym when I was in high school. So I was really in that environment and it felt familiar to me. So I was accepted in the policing and accepted in the personal training. And I kind of had to make a decision. And I went with the personal training program. So I did that, and I knew that I wanted, like, throughout the school year, they were talking a lot about, what gym you wanted to work at and type of thing. And a lot of people that study personal training You end up either like working for yourself, but under a gym where they kind of take a bit of a percentage of whatever you make. Um, and so I was introduced to kind of that like entrepreneur world that way, from working for myself in a gym. So I moved back home when I graduated, and there was a gym there that I met with, and they were interested in having me work there. So I was training there at first, but then I also worked the counter and I worked the front desk, and I kind of just spent all my time there giving classes, training people. And so I started my business kind of because that's kind of how you start working as a personal trainer. Like you have to kind of work for yourself. But then I got used to not working for people, and I like that. And so I feel like I'm constantly looking for that in my life, where even if I work right now for like an organization that is very official and I have managers, supervisors, bosses, and chain of commands and people above me and above my pay grade, I'm constantly looking in my life for a way to have something that's mine. And no matter how little or how much income it's making me, something that is just mine and I get to control and kind of make all of the, corporate decisions about, and I kind of get to put my entire self and my creativity and everything into it. And I did that with a personal training when I started, and I just was so young, and I I was kind of a mess. So a lot of my personal struggles went into the way I did business and the relationships that I was building, and I didn't have many boundaries, and I was a people pleaser, so I wasn't very I didn't have much of a spine when it came to like free sessions and giving friends favors, and like I didn't have that sense of business. So obviously that affected the success of my business. But at the same time, the knowledge I have now from going through that is really, really valuable. So I look forward to kind of jumping into something that is mine again with the knowledge that I have from kind of running your own thing when you're so young.
Well, that's what I was going to kind of follow up with. What was the biggest takeaway from it with all the challenges and everything of starting a business at that age, relatively inexperienced?
Yeah. I mean, I had no help, first of all. Like I had absolutely no help. I had support, but I didn't have help. So like when it came to doing anything with finance, anything with accounting, I had to figure it out. I had to go sit down with people and ask questions. And I wasn't necessarily sitting down with the right people to ask questions. When you grow up the way I grew up, you kind of just take advice from the people that gave you advice your whole life, which is often like your parents or your family members that are around you, and are often people who know nothing about accounting. You know what I mean? So you take advice from people that are just there and have always given you advice. Whereas now I have the knowledge that if I were to start a business, I would only go search and seek advice from people who have successful businesses, who have created their own like accounting plans and finance plans for their business and business plans. I didn't have a business plan. Like I had nothing. I kind of winged it and I jumped into it. So I think the biggest challenge was developing that sense of responsibility. And you also owe your clients so much because they're buying into you as a product. So you hold yourself up to a certain standard. But then I also lived with my parents, and it was the dysfunctional environment that I was going to every day. And I was also going through my own fitness journey that wasn't necessarily the healthiest fitness journey because I had a lot of pressure to look the part. And that's kind of something I didn't really like about the industry. Like people will train with you because they want to look like you, not because of necessarily the diplomas on your wall and the knowledge that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always, I kept saying that all the time. I was like, you wouldn't go see a dentist with like crappy teeth and rotten teeth, and bad breath. Like you wouldn't go see, so you wouldn't train with someone who's, doesn't look like the dream body that you want, type of thing. So I had that pressure on me, and I just started taking it less and less seriously because it was taking a toll on me and it was putting a lot of pressure on me. And I also operated out of a very, very small town. So the gym that I actually worked at went bankrupt without telling anyone. So
Oh man.
And it's the second gym that I work for in this town that goes bankrupt while I work there. And I just show up one day and the doors are locked, you know? So there's a bunch of different challenges like that. But personally, I think the biggest takeaway looking back to that was like, if I had to do that again today, I would spend so much more time sitting down with people that I would trade places with when it comes to their business than just sitting down with people for the sake of having someone that I consider authority telling me this is how you should do it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, that's definitely a learning experience, and yeah, something that I'm sure everybody would come to the same conclusion after going through that. But it's good that you can apply these things now with new projects. And
Yeah.
you mentioned your own fitness journey. I want to know more about that, because I know that you did competitive. What would you call it exactly? It was competitive bodybuilding, or
Well, it's like I mean, I guess it's bodybuilding, but I don't consider it bodybuilding because when you're a female in that area, you're like when you compete bikini, it's like it's still bodybuilding, but I wasn't like a drug-free association where it was kind of a well, yeah, I mean it's fitness
Mhm.
competing, yeah.
Yeah, because I like I've seen competition photos and stuff, and it's incredible. The amount of work you must have put in to look like that must have been outrageous. So
Yeah.
like, how did you get into that, first of all?
Yeah. So I started looking into it when I was in Alberta, when I was studying personal training. I was following a lot of the women that were fitness competitors. And it sounds crazy because I'm still very young, but like back then, like scrolling on Instagram to look at fitness competition photos was like a new thing. You know, like now you can follow like millions of pages about that. But back then it was like you didn't know a lot of people that did that. And I was curious, like I had this it just piqued my interest, like the amount of discipline that went into that. And I looked up to that so much and I saw it as so like noble and so great. And I was like fascinated by it. And I wanted to do it, but I wasn't in a place where I was like serious enough to really like do it. But it was an idea and a goal that started brewing like from the get-go when I applied to college at 18, 17. Um, and then when I started my business, I was in the gym every day anyways. So I was like, this is definitely the time to do it. And other trainers that had clients around me had done competition. So they had that under their belt. They had the pictures, they had the train with me because this is what I can do type thing. So I wanted to just look the part and have that under my belt as well. So um, believe it or not, I went from being like a scrawny little 18-year-old to on stage ready in 6 months. Like it was a 6 month
Wow,
prep.
I had no idea it was that
Um,
quick.
yeah, it was a 6 month prep. And I still sometimes I think back and I think it's insane because I put on a lot of muscle in like a short amount of time, which of course the training and the nutrition played a huge role. But I also think that um like I have good genes for that.
Mhm.
I put on muscle very easily and if I can stop training for a year and then pick back up again. And it doesn't take a lot of time for my body to remember exactly like, you know, muscle memory is a fascinating thing and it's great. But yeah, I think genetically speaking, like I had a bit of an advantage there. And that's why I was able to do a prep so fast. But it was 6 months of like training every day, little rest, long workouts, and crazy dieting. But yeah, so like I said, I wasn't in the best place either, and I was struggling a lot with like my mental health, my family situation, my sense of identity, who am I as a business person, who I am as an individual. And I just like I poured everything I had and my entire identity into my training. So I kind of became someone training for a fitness competition. Like I didn't know who I was outside of that, which is obviously not the healthy thing to do. Um, so it was a very interesting experience and I'm really happy that I did it. But it was also very difficult and uh, I didn't feel that great on stage and I didn't feel that great when I got home and it was over because then it's like, what now? So you start prepping for another one, but it wasn't that great. So you don't actually want to be prepping for that all the time. It's not a sustainable thing. Um, but yeah, I did it and I was very proud and I had a lot of support um, from like my clients and my family at the gym where I worked and stuff. And yeah, I did that.
Just from a discipline perspective, what was it like being that intense for 6 months to get those extreme results? It must have been, and you mentioned that you were going through a lot of difficulties in your personal life. So like mentally, what kind of place did you need to be in to actually accomplish that?
Yeah, I was definitely the only person eating and training and doing everything the way I was doing around me. So there, I didn't know anyone else that was prepping. I didn't have a partner to kind of. I had a coach, but she wasn't in my town. So I would text her, and I would like I had like a digital relationship with my coach, um, so I could check in with her type thing. But I was definitely it's definitely something I did alone. So I had to, but I had the pressure of not letting my clients down and not letting everyone I said I'm doing a fitness competition down. So I kind of like the days when it was hard and I was like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I had a lot on the line, you know, like my credibility and my business's credibility. Like I was documenting my journey. And that's what kind of kept me going is I kind of invited my social media following that I had back then. I don't have that following anymore. I kind of removed my fitness pages and everything when I changed industries, but I had accumulated a big enough following and a lot of people supporting my journey. So I documented like my diet, my trainings, my progress, my pictures. Like I had everything documented on social media. So I had to live up to the expectation and I had to walk my talk, you know. So I kind of, and people would ask me like, because there's some kind of like there was a shame around in my environment when it came to social media. Like if you posted a lot on social media, it was like something you had to be embarrassed about, or people would shame other people that posted on social media. But for me, it was my business. It was literally my bread and butter. Like I had to post on social media all the time because that's how I made my money. Like a lot of my programs were all on social media. I had clients in the gym, but I had more clients online following programs. So that's how I you know, got my clientele and all that. So I think the way that I stuck to my plan was really because I documented all of it. So I had to walk my talk, you know. I had so many people watching and supporting me and wanting to see me succeed, and that I kind of fed off of that because I didn't have the support system around me physically. So I found it in a like virtual following of, you know, friends and supporters.
So in a sense, it was a great tool because it kind of put you under the pressure that people would see if you gave up or
Yeah,
abandoned
for
this
sure.
or whatever.
For sure.
I've been very fascinated with social media, also because I work in media. Um, I have a degree in journalism, so like social media kind of comes with the territory now when we're talking about that. And there's a lot of pros and cons, and I've really fluctuated back and forth over the years between wanting to use it as the great tool that it can be for developing businesses, or you know, just sharing, even treating it as just like a public journal of sorts. You know, that's not necessarily a bad thing to do, but it can get very unhealthy, and there's a lot of cons as well. So you know, I fluctuate between wanting to use it for those
Yeah.
good purposes and also wanting to just completely remove myself from it altogether because of the exposure to toxicity and other undesirable things that aren't necessarily great for your mental health. And I know that you have a lot of experience using it. What are your thoughts on it in general? I guess let's start there.
Yeah. So this is a loaded like conversation, the whole social media thing. Because like I said, I was shamed a lot when I was younger for being so active on social media. Like something as small and insignificant as like my family going for a walk and me posting a picture of our walk, it was like, oh, why do you have to post everything on social? Like I was shamed all the time. So I felt ashamed in an aspect, but I saw so much potential very young, very early in the tool that it can be for a brand and to branding yourself and having a business and all that. And you can't deny that. Like so many businesses are so successful because of social media. So you can't deny that it can be a great tool, but obviously it can also be problematic. Um, I was conflicted because I was using it as a tool, while also being in that unhealthy trap. So it was like, I'm using it as a tool and it's great and it's so useful and I want to promote it, but I shouldn't be promoting it as a tool because I know the negative effects it has them on me. So I didn't want to be telling people like use social media to promote your business because I knew it could be, you know, toxic, but that at the same time, it was such a great tool. And I kept getting pushback from people and people shaming me from using it so much. So I was very conflicted. And when I went through my personal development journey and healing and therapy and all this stuff to kind of fix what was broken from my childhood and my teenage years, social media stopped bothering me. The things I was seeing on social media completely stopped bothering me. And I would see things I was like, wow, a year ago, I would have seen that. And I would have literally like nitpicked at myself and compared myself. And I would have gone back constantly to look at that picture and I would have saved it maybe or screenshotted it and made it a background and something to aspire to. And I would have just like sucked all the poison out of that. And now I can just scroll past it. So I kind of became this realization that social media isn't necessarily the problem. It's how you use it and the state of mind you're in while you use it. That is the problem. And so often I was like, I'm just going to delete my social media, or I'm just going to unfollow all these people, and I'm just going to remove the trigger from my, field of vision. But you have no control over that. There's ads now. Everyone knows how algorithms work. Like, I'm a female, so right there, I'm someone's market. I'm a female in my 20s. I'm a market for an algorithm, for an ad that I'm going to get, even if I unfollow pages. So you're never completely safe from triggers. So the only thing that you can control is how you react to them rather than trying to eliminate them completely. And so by becoming someone who just has a self-concept and self-confidence and a sense of identity, things on social media stopped affecting me the way that they did. But the problem is that a lot of the things on social media kind of discourage people from having a self-confidence and a sense of identity. So you're working towards something that's kind of subconsciously being affected. So it's kind of a catch-22. So it's constantly the same conversation I have with people where it's like, yes, you're right, it's so toxic, and yes, you're right, it's so brilliant. So I think it really comes down to the way you use it and the state of mind that you have when you're using it. I've also been pretty good at kind of filtering what I see and what I consume. Like, I'm very cutthroat with social media. Like, I will unfollow someone that I absolutely love if there's no benefit in what they're about and what they share on social media to me personally. I'm a very selfish social media user. And a lot of people would say like, well, you can't unfollow this person. Like, it's going to be so awkward after. And like, no, it doesn't have to be. We're allowed to use social media is like a virtual world. We can use it however we want. I still respect this person and we still can have conversations in a relationship, but I don't benefit whatsoever personally from the content that they share. And yeah, so I'm very cutthroat when it comes to social media. And I think that's part of the reason why I can use it without letting it get out of hand, because it has definitely gotten out of hand and I've had to deal with that. And yeah, like you can literally, make posts, like this is irrelevant, and kind of have some sense of control on what you're being suggested and what you're seeing, and then just getting rid unapologetically of things that don't serve you, and have some kind of control over your feed. But for me, most of the time, I see it as a brilliant tool to use when you have like I also studied journalism. So the whole idea and the concept that I have for this business plan that I want to develop is literally like a media platform where I do photography, I do videography, I do writing, and like I want to do podcasting, and I want to do all these things, and they all fall under like digital media in some way. That's how they're going to be shared. That's how I'm going to be able to reach more people. So I would be, it wouldn't make sense for me to deny that it's a brilliant tool when I know that what I want to create as a creative would be accessed by so many people through a social media platform.
100%. And it's like with most things, it's not necessarily the platform itself that's inherently bad, but the way that people can use it. There's healthy ways and unhealthy ways. It's like that with many things in this world. And one of the things that strikes me too, just going from the opposite end of like, as opposed to consuming information, but actually posting it and putting yourself out there, I have found it to be a challenging exercise to build up enough confidence to post things that people will see. You know what I mean? Because I'm not the most outgoing person in the world. I really prefer to keep things to myself and stay very private as opposed to being very outgoing. And I see it as kind of an exercise in building my confidence and my, letting my personality out a little bit. That's been tough. And it's something that you don't realize until you try doing it. And I think a lot of people take that for granted and think they have an ego problem or whatever. They post things all the time, every day. But it's actually not easy to do, which is what I've discovered.
Yeah. And I feel like we live in a world where you're so constantly, whether you realize it or not, are discouraged from having opinions and a personality and a sense of identity that is personal to you. Like we struggle with our identities so much as a race, like as human beings. And we're encouraged to do that because that's how we will look at other people and look at marketing and seek approval and consume. So we're encouraged to kind of lose our sense of identity and turn to brands and trends and whatever is, whatever the hype is, we kind of jump on it to identify as something because we're kind of losing our sense of identity and our sense of having our own opinions. And the whole cancel culture thing kind of comes with that. It's even more, it's scarier now to post your own thoughts and your own opinions on social media because of cancel culture and because of how completely, attacked you can be from sharing something that, if you ask me, all opinions are in some way valid. And like I'm constantly preaching how everything is subjective. Everything is subjective. And there's an audience for every single school of thought, but it's so discouraged and it makes it scarier for people to share their ideas and, their vision when, like, I know personally, I have opinions that I'm scared to share on podcasts or on my future platform because I'm like, oh, I'm going to be canceled over this. Like my first episode, I'm going to be canceled, because it's so not, what's trending right now, and having a differing opinion from other people and making them question their own opinions, but which makes them question the narrative because then everyone should be thinking this way. It's so problematic. And I think even though it's scary to have a platform where you share your own true opinion, it's so needed right now. We need people to be fearless and have, platforms that will encourage dialogue and encourage debate. We don't even have that at a government level right now. We don't even encourage debate and encourage dialogue in some of the most important areas where we need dialogue and
I don't
debate.
think we have it at any level, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Any level, even as something as personal as like family and friends. I think that there are a lot of topics that you just can't really talk about. You can't discuss.
And I'm the annoying person that always says, I think it's a bigger problem that when we're around these people, we say, let's not talk about it than talking about it. Yes, It will cause a heated debate. And yes, it might, affect some relationships and some bonds. But I think constantly censoring ourselves around other people is part of the problem.
I agree. I think I echo what you just said about it being more important than ever to be honest and let your opinions out. And truthfully, this is one of the reasons why I started doing this again, because the world has become so confusing. And this podcast for me is really a personal thing. Like, yes, some people will listen to it, but my intention first and foremost is to help myself to figure out a little bit more like what this crazy world is all about by talking with people and sharing ideas, whether we agree or disagree on stuff. That really is of no importance to me. I just want to be able to share information with people to figure things out because it's gotten so crazy out there. I don't know what else to say. It's just the world is upside down. We both studied journalism, so we know how it is. the reality that you see on TV or wherever you get your news from is not reflective of the reality that you see when you look out your window. And to me, that boggles my mind. I don't understand how we've gotten to this point, but there's some sort of disconnect somewhere. And this is my humble attempt to try and figure it out for myself and perhaps help other people who are also feeling the same way, you know, to, I don't know, just hear different perspectives and try
And
to.
it's so valuable too to be able to do that, and just even just let people know that there are different opinions out there. Like, I'll listen to podcasts and I'll hear someone say something and I disagree with what they said so much. So much. I'm like, it fires me up. Like, how does someone, but then I always have this realization of like, a lot of people think that way. So like, do I think I'm right? Well, personally, I probably agree with my opinion and the way I think, but what kind of truth is there to what they are saying? Why do a lot of people think that way? There's a reason why. And if I know something that people don't know, then how can I reach these people and educate them and open up that conversation? And if it's me that's really just set in my ways and I'm actually completely wrong, then educate, like, find the opportunity for myself to be educated and learn more and then have conversations. Like, just that process is so valuable of being like, wow, I don't agree with that at all, but I'm not going to live in denial that people don't believe that. Like, people think that way. And whether that's a problem or not, like, where do I fit in this? Where can I either make the conversation go a bit longer so I can learn, or maybe, you know, find a way to connect with people and educate them on like, hey, actually, like, I have a lot of knowledge in this area, or have a podcast episode where we can have someone that thinks it a different way and just give them an opportunity to talk about it. Because the word of mouth is forever going to be the best marketing. You know, yes, now everyone's locked into their houses looking at their phones, which is a brilliant marketing strategy if you ask me. But the word of mouth is always, and I swear by this, it's always going to be the best marketing, the best way to get conversations, promote things. Like, we are just natural marketers. Even people who say I suck at selling things, no, you're brilliant at selling things, but you're not brilliant at selling everything. I think you've told me that actually once,
I
that you're
did.
not a good salesperson.
Yes,
But like,
because
I have watched movies I would have never watched if it wasn't for you talking about them. And I you know, saw Ryan play a video game that he never would have played, but you sold it so well in the way, when you know a product and you enjoyed it, you can sell it. You know,
yeah,
it's, you just have to know what you're talking about.
there's
And you've
definitely
done that
something.
so many times with us, you know.
I mean, when you're talking about word of mouth, it's definitely the personal connection that really
Mhm.
brings it across, as opposed to being exposed to an ad or whatever, but actually talking to somebody and having them recommend it. And especially if it's somebody that you know personally, that you can then go and experience whatever it is that they brought to your attention, and then share your thoughts with them afterwards. It just kind of creates this feedback loop that you want to engage with. And I think that's why, you know, one of the first things that, or a go-to topic of conversation is what, any good movies you've seen lately, you know,
Yeah.
because that's how, one of the ways that we connect with each other now. It's like, you know, do you have any recommendations, so that I
Yeah.
can go and check it out and then let you know what I think, and then continue that dialogue with each other.
Yeah.
That's super powerful. And it's a lot easier to do when you're talking about things that you're not involved in personally. Like, that, one of the reasons why I told you that I'm a bad marketer is because I hate promoting myself in things that I've done. Um, it's uncomfortable for me to say, hey, check out this thing that I've been working on. Like, I've been a musician for over a decade, playing in a band, and, you know, a lot of people that I know probably don't even know that, because I don't wear it on my sleeve,
Mm-hmm.
just because, I don't know, it's not natural to me. Maybe I should work on changing that. I'd probably be a lot more successful. But yeah, no, that's just the way it is. But I totally agree with you. Word of mouth is so powerful.
Yeah. Conversations and just dialogue. And we're living in a time where people listen to people talk to each other all the time. Like, podcasts are a thing now. People are so tired of having the same old conversations with people that they're just around because they have to be, I guess, that they listen to random people they don't know talk about things that they're interested in, but they don't know anyone else to have those conversations with. And that's where, if you're not good at promoting your own craft, but you're interested in a lot of things and you want to have important conversations, then, you're promoting dialogue and you're promoting just sitting down with people and talking and having important conversations in a way. And I think, yeah, like it's so important now, so
Yeah.
valuable.
It's no mystery to me why podcasts have exploded in popularity. It's because of the misuse of the soundbite in media. This creation, which is this super powerful tool that just removes any and all context from a sentence or two that can be used to weaponize information and just make people look bad. It's terrible how it's been blatantly misused, and people understand that and want to hear more. You can listen to a 2-minute clip of somebody who sounds like an ass that you totally disagree with, but listen to them explain that for an extra 20 minutes, and then you'll get oftentimes a lot more clarity and maybe change your perspective completely. So I think that's what people really crave. And yeah, it's one of the reasons why the long form conversations are really growing in people's interests.
Yeah. And there's such a monumental element of growth in hearing a soundbite from someone that you're like, wow, this person's an asshole. And like, I can't believe they just said that. But then listening to the entirety of what they were saying and a bunch of different things that they talked about and being like, well, I didn't agree with that at all, but I agreed with this. Or, oh, that made sense, but this didn't. Like finding ways to relate to some things that people are saying, agreeing with something they're saying, and being okay with disagreeing with other things, instead of just, completely cutting someone out because of one thing that they like. Yeah, I think it's so good for a person in general in just their own journey of development and growth and being able to work with other people. Like, how are you supposed to go work in an office with a bunch of different people around you with all their own opinions and their own visions and the things they believe in, and not find yourself able to accept someone for the 17 things you have in common because of the one thing that you don't? There's a tolerance and a patience and an understanding, and just, I think we also crave relationships so much, so good relationships too. Not we so Some relationships are so like cheap, like there's no value, and we just continue surrounding ourselves with people that we're not better than them and they're not better than us. We just don't vibe, but we still do because either we've always had, or it's since we're little, or it's family, or it's this or it's that. And even that is so detrimental. But we lost our sense of like, who am I and what do I like, and can I put myself first and make this decision unapologetically? I feel like a lot of my journey and finding myself and my truth and my identity and showing up in the world as who I am, one of my biggest realizations is that it's like we have completely been discouraged of having our own sense of identity. We're just trying to become like everyone else and follow the same train, the same bandwagon. And we resent each other, but we're doing it to ourselves. Like, it's such a complex thing, but now I see it being promoted everywhere. I see it with cancel culture. I see it with ads. I see it with, those sound bites and the media and everything going on in the world right now, and how divided it is, like over one thing will divide people. Like, you're this and I'm that, and we are opposites, and it's like magnets, and we don't attract, and but you guys have so much in common. It's just this one thing that you can't agree on, but it's the end all be all. It's sad.
Two human beings who disagree fundamentally on one thing have 99% in common, but that 1% will cause so much friction, and it's the only thing that's focused on. And I think that's really exploited a lot by the media, because negativity sells. There's that saying, if it bleeds, it leads. We see it all the time.
And exploited in, like, we were talking about social media and, branding yourself. Like, you can have a whole brand based on something that someone loves, but you have this one thing you do that someone doesn't agree with, and you're cut out. Like, you're done. You just lost this person completely because I don't know, because, you eat meat and this person doesn't. But everything else they agreed with, and your content was really good and educational and valuable to them. But then, like I don't eat meat, and I joke about all the time, like I joke about my membership card all the time. Or like if I don't know, I say something that is not aligned with the membership, and I joke about that because it's so silly, because it's like it doesn't make me more or less who I am. I'm not a phony because I just ate this piece of broccoli that was cooked in butter and butter as dairy. Like, oh, I'm going to lose my membership card. Like, shit. I always joke about that because we have lost our sense of identity so much that when we join a group, or when we join a membership, like I call it, where like you identify as someone who doesn't eat, or you say that, I don't know, like you're a fitness competitor now, you're going to try this thing, like you have to wear it like a costume over your face, over who you are, over where you're from, over your current career, over everything. You have to wear it as a costume, like that's all you are and that's who you are. And I see that so often, and I was guilty of that for so long, where I couldn't be Breanna with all of my various interests. Like I had to be Breanna who's really into MMA and sports journalism, and just, I need to wear my gi and do jujitsu every day. And I have to just post about this and just promote that and just write about that. And I have to completely wear my love of MMA as what I do and who I am. I can't be the girl who likes this, but then also, is passionate about whatever, animals or whatever, and then who also likes music and also likes movies, and then also likes to write and also likes journalism and likes to research this or likes to research that. Or I couldn't have all my little interests. Like I had to just pick one and wear it and identify as it, because that's what I feel encouraged to do, because of this whole social media thing, where you follow people who are completely just their niche, like their audience, and what they do is one thing, and it's their specialty, and that's promoted. Whereas you look at people who, like Joe Rogan, for example, who this guy has a podcast about the most random shit. Like he can have Elon Musk on one day, a total random guy that he just smokes a joint with and shoots this shit with on another day, a vegan cyclist, and then like, someone from Jackass, and then just a comedian girl that is like up and coming, and, on every different day. And they're all things that he's interested in. This guy just gets to talk all the time about all his various interests, rather than just making it an MMA show or a, comedy show or a health show or a SpaceX show, like whatever. He varies in what he does. And I think that is what we're missing. Like that's so valuable. And that's the sense of identity. That's this guy saying, I like all this shit and none of it relates to each other, but it's who I am.
Yeah.
And his audience is so huge because of that.
Exactly. He's proof that you can make it work, because
Yeah,
he really doesn't
sure.
fit into a box at all. Like you said, he'll have the most random assortment of guests that you can imagine. Yeah. And, you pick and choose what you want to listen to, but
exactly.
He's not going to tailor it to your specific set of interests. I mean, it's based on what he likes. And I think that's fantastic. And you're right. That's why he has millions and millions of listeners.
Yeah. And I'm sure some people are like not listening to a lot of episodes that are about something they don't like. They just focus on the ones that they do like. And I think that's encouraging other people to listen to the stuff that they like, and encourage this sense of identity of like, I like this and I don't like that. And that's okay. I'm not going to cancel this guy because he talks about that, even if I don't care about it. I'm not going to not listen to his show. I like this and I will listen to this. And then, find another podcast where that person who you agreed with and who, had a good conversation about something you like, they were on this podcast as well. And then kind of, go listen to all those different conversations and develop that sense of like certainty within yourself that you actually enjoy that and it's okay. And you can like that, but you can also like a bunch of other things. I always felt like my business had to be focused in one thing. When it was fitness, it was just fitness. And then something really great would happen in like the MMA world. And I felt like I couldn't share it because it wasn't part of my brand or it wasn't part of my audience. Like I felt guilty. I felt like I couldn't be all the colors of who I am.
And those are two things that are pretty closely related too. Fitness and MMA, they kind of they're adjacent to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Still, so it would have been super relevant in a way. But yeah, I always struggled with that. And like, well, then if I was in fitness, but then I no longer eat meat, then like no one's going to take me seriously because of that whole you need protein from animals to be healthy. And all these debates out there, like it made me question my brand and what I promoted and who I was all the time. And then like I should just, like, if I'm going to be a writer and a journalist, then I have to just be a writer and just be a journalist. But again, that's another field that is so vast. And now, like, if I work for a police force or law enforcement, then why would I be on social media? I'm supposed to hide who I am and just be the oath and the service first. And then I feel like that's the big problem. We're just not encouraged to sit and look at the multicolors of our personalities and bring that to the table. We just wear one thing as that's who we are, and we identify as that, and then makes us question everything when our minds change and we get new, because we're always going to be changing our minds. And we'll wake up someday and be like, wow, I can't believe I thought that was real and that was true and that was the way to go back then, but I did. Our opinions and everything changes all the time. So I think with podcasts and with anything that you do, promoting that dialogue and promoting that, like what you're doing, having conversations about things that matter to you and things that you care about, without necessarily promoting yourself, which makes you uncomfortable, but promoting that dialogue, making it easier for you to have those conversations and to let other people come on here and talk. And then some people are going to disagree with some of the stuff I say. Some people are going to agree with it. And I think that's the beauty of it all. And that's kind of what I want to do with my my platform.
Well, yeah, 100%. And I hope that you do develop it. And I'm excited to see how it turns out, because as you said, it's all about the conversations. And, I'm not scared of people disagreeing with me, or, like, tough conversations don't bother me, and I don't take things personally. So, I can disagree with somebody and have a tremendous conversation with them and not lose any respect. In fact, probably gain respect from them because they were able to express themselves and stand up for their beliefs. I value that tremendously. I think that's what makes this world great. And if people are truly sharing bad ideas, they're going to sink like a rock in water.
Yeah.
And if there's some value to be had, then it's worth listening to. Before I let you go, I just wanted to kind of ask if there's anything that you've been reading or watching or listening to that you really recommend.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot, but recently I've been reading a very interesting book. Let me grab it, actually. I've been reading this little masterpiece called Quit Like a Woman by Holly Whitaker. And it's a book about the radical choice to not drink in a culture obsessed with alcohol. I picked up this book because I'm not someone who drinks a lot. I used to when I was younger, like I partied a bit, but when I was like too young, which is sad. But that's a bit like what she touches on in this book. But I picked it up because I'm very curious and interested in the whole alcohol world and not drinking, the substance itself, the whole concept of alcoholism and stuff. Because I'm the daughter of two alcoholics. I'm the granddaughter of alcoholics. I'm the great granddaughter of alcoholics. I'm the siblings of people who label themselves alcoholics. So, but I don't label myself as an alcoholic. And I have the very controversial, I guess, belief that there's not really such a thing as an alcoholic. And yeah, it's what I've been reading, and it's part of my whole self-development journey, reparenting journey. And it's geared towards like women, and there's a lot of interesting facts and concepts in there about like feminism, and then the role of big alcohol and how it's being marketed towards women, and especially motherhood. And I'm also kind of preparing to be a mom, but like years before I even plan on being a mom, which is another part of my reparenting journey and my self-development journey. And yeah, this book has been really, really important in that process. And I kind of just picked it up for fun, not thinking it would be so mind-blowing and life-changing for me, but it's really been I'm not done yet, but it's been probably one of the most important books that I'll pick up in like my 20s, I think.
Cool. Can you go into some detail on this reparenting concept? You mentioned it at the beginning and again now.
Yeah.
But yeah, a little more info on that.
Yeah. So reparenting is like a psychological term that some therapists will do with their clients. And like there's an actual like reparenting method in psychology where like the client will become a child and the psychologist will take on like a parenting role, and sometimes they will literally like bottle feed them and kind of do. That's not what I'm talking about at all. And I'm sure it has worked for some people, but the term reparenting for me I've kind of used in my own journey and in a bit of like what I teach and what I study, and it's going to be part of like my project that I'm working on. But it's a completely personal journey of going back to your childhood, just personally, and working on the things that you didn't get as a child and the areas where your parents might have um, not failed, but just not like showed up the way you would have needed or the way that you plan on showing up for your kids. And just I know personally a lot of people, and it might be from where I'm from. I've had a lot of conversations with people who don't necessarily relate to this because they grew up around people like, their reality is very different than mine from how we grew up. But a lot of the people that I grew up around come from parents who had kids very young and hadn't dealt with their own emotional issues and kind of their own trauma from their upbringing. And then they kind of jumped into parenthood, and then it becomes the child's job to metabolize all the poison from the intergenerational trauma, which is like basically what I'm doing through reparenting. Is I'm trying to metabolize all of the intergenerational trauma that was passed down to me, so that my kids don't have to heal from whatever I passed down to them. And coming from a long line of alcoholics, how alcohol has showed up in my life and the role it has played and how it has affected people who were taking care of me or people who were supposed to be examples for me has been super traumatic and unhealthy. And I kind of went into the same pattern when I was maybe like 16, 17, 18 years old. And then when I went into health and fitness, it wasn't as present, but it definitely still was. It was a coping mechanism, and it was like, it was just something I would do to rarely when I was like training for a competition, but otherwise it was like normal for me to drink like on weekends and stuff. But it was something for me personally where like it never made me feel good. Nothing good ever happened when I would drink. And my mental health would always be affected the next day and the day after. And it was very long for me to come back from like, a bender if I went out on a weekend or whatever. So through my reparenting journey, I just had to, with a lot of different tools and help and therapists, and then like my own personal journey with meditation and psychedelics and my own kind of internal, I guess it's a journey, we'll say, like my own internal journey of healing the trauma from my childhood, and then meeting myself as the person I am today and knowing what I want to do moving forward. I couldn't live with myself knowing that I would become a mom that would put my children through what I went through, and thinking that my children would have to grow up into adults that couldn't live productive lives right off the bat because they would have to heal from my wrongdoings. So I devoted the last 3 years and now more to reparenting myself and healing my trauma, so that when I have kids, they don't have to heal from it. So that's kind of what I mean by reparenting. And this book was part of like that process. I'm at the alcohol chapter of my journey of reparenting, and that's where this book by Holly Whitaker came into my life.
Whatever you're doing, Breanna, you're doing a great job, because you're one of the most stable and together people that I personally know. So
Well, thank you very much for that.
yeah, it's pretty incredible. Yeah, congratulations to you.
Thank
I want to end this on a really uplifting and positive note. And I want to ask you, what gives you hope for the future of this world?
you. I think what gives me hope for the future of this world, and this is again is going to be a controversial answer, but it's people like me. And I say this with all of the, you know, like I'm very humble when I say this. Like I'm not saying it because I think I'm better than everyone and at all. I say it taking into account all of my flaws and all of the things that I fucked up in my life and all of the bad decisions that I made. And I'm saying this looking at what I come from and what I want to create, because I sit down with people who knew me when I was a child and that knew kind of my family and the things that I've gone through. And it always comes up the question that is like, how have you become this from that? It's always a gigantic mystery. And I find it funny because I obviously don't know, like I don't know. I can't tell you. It's the only thing that I've been able to tell myself to answer that question of like, why did I choose to become the way I am, with the tools that I was given to become someone and an adult. I just had a moral compass. I think I just had a little moral compass that I trusted more than I trusted anyone else. And it's been a challenge in my life a lot, and it's made me look like a confrontational, like rebellious child. But I just always trusted my little moral compass more than anything else. And I have a lot of faith in people. I have a lot of blind faith in people. And I know there's more people like me out there that come from really shitty circumstances and who are the end of that line. They're the end of that generational mess. Like I could have become just a copy of what I witnessed growing up and continue that lineage. But I have hope for the future because I know there's more people like me out there, especially now with the resources and the tools and everything available for us to grow ourselves and look like inside of us and heal. I know that there's more people out there who are putting a lot of thought into how they're showing up in the world and the kind of children they want to raise. And I used to read things where people would say like, oh, like the children are the future and you can make such an impact by the way you raise your one kid. And I was like, how? Like the next generation is so big and this one child is going to make a difference. And now I get it so much. There's such an impact you can make with the way that you raise one child. And I know there's more people like me out there who want to be the end of the cycles and the patterns and end the intergenerational trauma that was passed down, to raise kids that are going to become good people that will be able to live a productive life and grow into adults that are going to be game changers and that are going to have a moral compass that they trust and won't spend their 20s healing from their childhood like I have to do, because time is so valuable. And I don't want my kids to have to waste 10 years of their lives in therapy, and trying to figure out why they're so messed up because I didn't do the work. Like I hold myself accountable for that. And the more that I talk about it, the more I meet people that are doing that. So I have hope for the future. And I have so much of it because I know that there's a lot of people at work out there becoming better versions of themselves for the next generation. And even people who choose not to have kids, like a lot of people in my life that have had tremendous impact on me didn't have kids and weren't necessarily a family member to me. They were just people I met along the way. So people who choose not to have kids that are also working on themselves and bettering themselves to show up as, mentors and role models and people that have positive impacts on others have just as much of a role on the next generations as parents do. It does take a village. I strongly believe it takes a village, and we all have impacts on the way we show up and just the words that we use and the people we choose to be. And yeah, it gives me hope for the future. And that's kind of what I've been holding on to, because it's been a strange time, especially in Ottawa. But I have hope, and that's what I'm choosing to ride this wave with.
That's a great message. That's really inspiring, and thanks for sharing that. And thank you for taking the time again to speak with me. I think we have enough material to go on for much longer, but I'll leave it here for now. You'll have to
Yeah, no
join me
problem.
again
Yeah,
because you mentioned psychedelics and meditation, which are two other cans of worms that could go down a big rabbit hole.
yeah,
Plus the Ottawa situation you mentioned, which is currently unfolding. Maybe we can get into that another time once the dust settles on that. But for now, I think let's wrap it up. And thanks again.
no problem.